Prescription of Palestine Action was pushed by the Israel lobby. Prescription of Hezbollah was pushed by the Israel lobby. Both those things, I think, if even the British establishment had control over the things, wouldn't have done. One, because Palestine Action is so preposterous, it's just it's become unworkable and it's an embarrassment now. On the Hezbollah thing, they've got two ministers in the Lebanese government. The British government don't want to, in terms of British national interest, they don't want to alienate and make it impossible to negotiate, to deal with people in positions of power
Well, this is why I think Britain has lost a lot of its diplomatic capital around the world, particularly through this prescription regime, which is why global diplomacy now doesn't happen out of London; it happens out of Doha in Qatar and other places. And just on this question of the prescription of Hezbollah, you mentioned the fact that this was done at the behest of the Israel lobby, which I think is absolutely true. The political wing of Hezbollah was prescribed in 2019. There wasn't some sort of escalation at that time with Hezbollah, but what was happening was that Jeremy Corbyn was the leader of the Labour Party, and despite the problems that he had when it came to Palestine, he was nominally a pro-Palestinian leader whose government would have recognized Palestine and possibly could have implemented some kind of boycott, divestment, and sanctions regime against Israel. And so it was a way of attacking him and the pro-Palestine movement by proxy. And of course, it was also a long-term objective of the Israel lobby here in Britain anyway. And you also mentioned that Hezbollah has two government ministers. Of course, they're a huge factor in Lebanese politics. Lebanon is a country which we surely want to be friendly with, and Hezbollah is a part of a government with which we have diplomatic relations.
Exactly. And also, by the way, interesting that you mentioned it when it happened in 2019 when Corbyn was the leader. They didn't oppose it, funnily enough, which is a story that doesn't get talked about, but they should have. But it showed how much pressure they were under and how they were wilting under that pressure. But it was quite explicitly the work of the Israel lobby in that case, because Lord Polak, who is kind of like the dean of the Israel lobby in this country, he did an interview which was posted on YouTube where he was talking about the Israel lobby's current concern, or it was then and still is, to get the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, prescribed in the same way. And he said, all we need to do is straight lobbying. With Hezbollah, it took us ages. So he's admitting that it was an Israel lobby thing. Then in Alan Duncan's diaries, he was a minister. He was a Tory minister for the Americas and Europe from 2016 to 19. He was a Tory minister when the prescription happened. And he said, like, he was in the Commons and he said that Israel's troops in the Commons have got this done. Sajid Javid, Priti Patel, others. He says that explicitly in his diaries. And Alan Duncan is not a fringe figure or conspiracy theorist. In fact, yeah, he's got odious politics in many things, but his position on Israel is just that he wants Britain to be a sovereign country.
Like, well, 100%. And he had skin in the game because Shai Massot, the Israeli spy who was kicked out of Britain, was trying to bring down Alan Duncan. And you mentioned that he's not a fringe figure. He was a close ally of Theresa May and was a minister in her government. And his diaries are quite stark, actually, in terms of the influence and control, at least within the Conservative Party, that he describes the Israel lobby wielding in Parliament.
Yeah, I actually think it's the best window we have into it. I read the whole book and did a story for Declassified at the time about what it revealed about the Israel lobby. And I mean, it's shocking, even for someone who is aware of the level of penetration. I mean, there's a line where he's talking to the permanent undersecretary in the Foreign Office, and he says something along the lines of, the Israelis think they control the Foreign Office, and they do. That's the quote. Obviously, that quote never got into the mainstream media. And he talks about the case with Shai Massot. He talks about the prescription of Hezbollah. And he talks about the fact that even his position that he was appointed to in Theresa May's cabinet, right? He was, as I mentioned, he was Minister for the Americas and Europe from 2016 to 2019. Now, he was originally slated to be Minister for the Middle East because he's known as the Middle East guy. He's a good friend of all the Gulf dictators, and he's that very sort of Arabist Foreign Office. And in his diaries, he goes through the process of, like, Boris Johnson approves it, Theresa May approves it, and then they get a call from Lord Polak this is Theresa May or her personal assistant, and Lord Polak and Eric Pickles, and they say you can't appoint Alan Duncan, Minister for the Middle East. And Alan Duncan's sort of saying, well, this is the Prime Minister of Britain. She's going to tell them to go away. She doesn't. She then informs Boris Johnson, who's his boss at the time, he's Foreign Secretary, oh, we can't appoint you the Middle East Minister. And then Alan Duncan's shocked, and he's like, well, can't we just say that I'll be Middle East Minister, but we'll leave out the brief of Israel-Palestine? So they're basically trying to carve out Israel-Palestine because to accede to the Israel lobby. So they put that back, and that gets rejected. And they say, sorry, we can't appoint you Middle East Minister. We're going to have to appoint you Minister for the Europe and Americas. So what you have in that case, and Boris Johnson, by the way, one of the quotes that in this conversation, he said, the Israelis always do this. How can they get away with this? Even Boris Johnson is aware of it privately, you know, and talks about it. But what you have there is a situation where agents of a foreign regime, because Lord Polak is basically working for Israel within the UK, are overruling the democratically elected Prime Minister of the country. And that's just from a phone call. That is a shocking state of affairs. And from his diaries, it's also clear that everyone within the Foreign Office is aware of this. Like, they can't say it publicly, but he does. But the other important thing about it is what does Alan Duncan think? This is an old school Tory guy. He's basically, his official position is the same position as the UK government, which is that settlements need to go, there should be a two-state solution, blah, blah. That's all he says. He's not radical in any way. He's not an anti-Zionist. He's a moderate. He's the same as the Conservative Party on their official policy. But that's too much for the Israel lobby. And that's what people need to understand about Zionism, its various different agencies here, is that it's a maximalist ideology. It only tolerates complete submission. And complete submission in this case means that you can't support a two-state solution because they never have supported the two-state solution, really. They're not going to tolerate a Palestine on its borders with a military or any kind of independences and independent intelligence agencies or anything. It's not going to happen. So anyone even vocalizing, the crime is to vocalize the government's official position. And if you go for that and destroy him, which is what Shai Massad was, it was exposed, then you can maintain this kind of complete control. And then they tried to use the other mechanism against Alan Duncan when he left government. There was a whole investigation of him for anti-Semitism, of which he was eventually cleared. But again, it's quite a revealing study in how the Israel lobby in this country, how powerful it is, but also how it operates.